Hi, welcome to Colley Biology. Today for Biology 112, we're going to be reviewing the respiratory system. Respiratory system is gas exchange with the circulatory system via diffusion. We're going to bring air into the body via either the nasal cavity or the oral cavity. Both the nasal and the oral cavity join together at the back of the throat at the structure we refer to as the pharynx. The pharynx. The pharynx then opens into the glottis. The glottis is the opening, the hole to the airway. Covering the glottis is a structure we refer to as the epiglottis. The epiglottis is literally a little flap of tissue that opens and closes. It opens to allow air into the respiratory system. It closes to allow food to go from the oral cavity down the esophagus to the digestive system. The glottis is ultimately the hole that opens into the larynx. Larynx is the voice box, the larynx. As air passes over our vocal cords, we produce sound. The larynx becomes the trachea. Trachea is the windpipe, the single airway. Lots of connective tissue, cartilage on the outside. That's hyaline cartilage, keeping the airway open and unrestricted. We have two lungs, one trachea. So the trachea is going to branch to the right and the left bronchi. Those are the direct branches of the trachea. Then we're into the lungs. When we're into the lungs, we get lots of little branches. Those are the bronchioles. You literally have hundreds and hundreds of bronchioles. Each bronchiole ends in an air sac, little tiny balloon. That little tiny balloon is referred to as the alveoli. Alveoli. If we look at this structure, the trachea coming down, notice these rings on the trachea. That's very characteristic. Once again, those are the cartilage elements that keep the airway open. We travel into the lung tissue itself. The lung tissue is composed of all of the bronchioles, the small branches, and all of the air sacs, the alveoli. These are the alveoli themselves, sometimes referred to as grape-like clusters, little tiny air sacs. They expand and contract like mini balloons when we bring in air. They're covered and coated with capillaries, so we see some red and blue blood vessels on the outside. That makes sense. We've got to get the oxygen to the blood supply and the carbon dioxide out of the blood supply. Let's look at a second respiratory model. When we look at this model, we have once again the larynx, that's the voice box. The blue ring structure is the trachea. Atop the trachea, nice representation of the thyroid gland. We look at the lungs. The right lung is a larger lung. It's larger because there's nothing that it has to share room with in the thoracic cavity. The left lung, however, is slightly smaller because the left lung is sharing room within the thoracic cavity with the heart. When we look at this particular model, this represents the diaphragm along with the intercostal muscles. This diaphragm muscle is what's going to help regulate and control breathing. If we remove the lungs, what that exposes is the heart itself, and we see the right and left bronchi, direct branches of the trachea, and then all of the smaller blue bronchioles. And on this side we see the bronchioles. On this side we see all of the blood vessels also intertwined, which makes sense. Again, the respiratory system has a very integral relationship with the circulatory system. That's the respiratory system.